evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Central Tennessee Region Solid Waste Planning Board. We've never had a crowd like this before that I know of. Glad you're here. We're here this evening to have a hearing about the Middle Point Landfill expansion request. Middle Point does have a presentation. We will listen to their presentation, and then there's roughly 30 people that signed up to speak either for or against. What we're requesting is try to finish your what you have to say in 3 minutes, and absolutely no more than 5. If everybody is saying the same thing, what I may do is ask for a show of hands of how many is going to say something real similar. We'll get your vote that way, just to keep it a little bit shorter. But I do not intend to keep people from actually speaking if they choose to. This is a public meeting, and it's a peaceful meeting, and we need to keep it that way. There will not be a vote tonight. Once we finish with the discussion, the board may choose to discuss it further and may not. We will set another meeting, probably going to be in Manchester or Coffee County on July the 9th, probably at 6 p.m. to actually do the vote. Have I missed anything?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There are maps available, both online with the city and with the county regarding this expansion. We will have them up on the screens this evening as well when the presenter's presentation is complete. And due to a hiccup, we are extending the public comment section past tonight. If new individuals would like to present comments, they're welcome to submit those in writing to the Rutherford County Government Office at 1 Public Square, attention Mac Nolan. That information will be on the screen also, and that will be extended until July 9th at noon.
For those of you that are not aware, what we have here tonight is our board consists of 4 counties and 4 cities. It's Cannon County and Woodbury, Coffee County and Manchester, Rutherford County and Murfreesboro, and Warren County and McMinnville. And all the representatives are here tonight with the exception of Woodbury. Mr. Klassen, are you ready?
Thank you, Mac. Good evening. Thanks for having us here tonight. It certainly is a pleasure to be here speaking in front of you. My name is Mike Klassen. I'm the General Manager for Republic Services, BFI, here in Middle Tennessee for all of our post-collections operation. And I am based here in Murfreesboro at Middle Point Landfill. Before we jump into our presentation, which will sort of outline the details of our proposal, I wanted to start by bringing in our legal counsel. This is Ed Calloway with Waller here in Nashville. Ed's going to set a little bit of the stage with regard to legal context, some background on the region planning process, and a summary of what the board's statutory purview is for review and approval of landfill expansion proposals. So we'll bring Ed up first, and I'll follow him up. Thanks.
I will try to be quick. My name's Ed Calloway. As Mike mentioned, I'm an attorney at Waller in Nashville, here representing BFI, which is the owner of Middle Point Landfill and the proponent of the proposal before you tonight. I'd like to take a minute to offer some important legal context, I think, on a procedure that doesn't come up very often. In fact, I think the last time we did this with this board was the consideration of the last expansion of Middle Point in 2004, 17 years ago. I know lawyers tend to talk too long and be overbearing, and I'll try to avoid that. But when you're considering Middle Point's plan and whether it's consistent with the region plan, it seems important to know first what the plan is, what it says about criteria for the evaluation, and what the scope of the board's role in the long permitting process is. So where does the region plan come from? The Solid Waste Act from 1991 was where this board comes from. It was drafted when the legislature determined there was a landfill capacity crisis at the time. It required the establishment of regions like this and boards like this to help provide a regional approach to address that crisis. Regions were required to create plans like the one you have that address two main issues: addressing adequate disposal capacity for a 10-year horizon, and developing a strategy to meet a 25% diversion goal to reduce the amount of waste going to Class 1 landfills. And by the way, congratulations, this region meets that criterion. But the point is, these plans are not intended to be all-encompassing plans that take care of every detail of solid waste and integrated solid waste planning throughout the entire region. So what is the Central Tennessee Board's region plan now, legally speaking? The last full restatement of the plan was in 2001, believe it or not. It was a 5-year update to the original plan, and it was created and adopted by the whole region and approved by TDEC at that time. If you go on the website, that's the version that is still posted on TDEC's website as the applicable plan for this region. Now, since then, the reporting process and the statute has been amended such that the individual counties make their annual updates on the on-site web-based form that you've seen lately, and the regions vote to approve them, then makes them kind of part of the plan as an update. So that's the process you just went through back in May. So right now the plan consists of the 2001 update and the most recent TDEC-approved annual updates. Anything from the 2001 plan that's not been replaced or superseded by subsequent updates remains a part of the plan today. So for that, you'll hear discussion of like 4 key questions for the board. That's from the detailed procedures that are in the 2001 region plan. And they provide guidelines that remain in place today because they've never been superseded. Next, I'd like to focus on the board's scope of work tonight and also express a few concerns that we have expressed in writing as well about some procedural items that haven't been followed. The regional plan requires that the board publish notice of the hearing in the newspaper 28 days in advance with very specific contents. The region plan also specifies a hearing process that includes a presentation to be made by a consultant for the board. And that there be 2 separate hearings, which I'm now understanding there will be, 14 days apart, and that the vote take place at the second one. While not all of these steps have been taken, we're prepared to move ahead with our part of the presentation tonight. I mention these simply to get them on the record. So what's the board's job this evening? You're here to determine if the proposal to continue operating Middle Point Landfill described in the application is consistent with the written TDEC-approved regional plan. The 2001 plan, as I mentioned, directs the board to 4 key questions for evaluation, and the most recent annual updates provide some additional color. The board can only deny the proposal, and this is from the statute, only upon determining that the application is inconsistent with the solid waste management plan adopted and approved by the department. And if you do so, you have to document in writing the specific grounds. And this is not just me talking. The Tennessee Court of Appeals, in interpreting this statute, has been clear that the Region Board has to limit its review to the approved plan. It said a request can be denied, quote, only if it's inconsistent with the board's waste management plan. With all due respect, I certainly respect that I am not here representing the board, and I'm not here to provide legal counsel to the board. This is an unusual process that most of the members of the board have not had an opportunity to study up on, and I'm hoping, frankly, that this is helpful information to help the board keep itself on track and follow the appropriate procedures. Thank you. There are a lot of related things to the landfills that people are very passionate about but aren't part of this review. like, for instance, if the proposal helps advance the 25% diversion goal. Of course, only disposal proposals come to this board for review. And no disposal proposal could, by its nature, actually advance that 25% goal. It's there to receive whatever is not recycled. And I don't think the statute intends to set up a process where every proposal that comes to the board would be voted down for that reason. This is not about whether the board thinks that the landfill poses an environmental risk. Environmental issues are in TDEC's jurisdiction, and they provide a separate and detailed and robust review of those. It's not about whether board members want landfills in the region. The statute requires a 10-year capacity assurance, and currently the region doesn't have that capacity identified, and the plan says as much on its face. It's not whether about board members want to encourage more recycling. I think we all believe that recycling needs additional support in the region, and BFI's response to Rutherford County's RFP, which is pending now, provides additional detailed proposals that will support all those things, but those are not specifically before the board tonight. But in any case, disposal capacity will always be needed at the end of the day. This is not about whether Middle Point accepts waste from other counties. The review is about Middle Point's service to the region and the region's needs as described in the written plan. And I note that Rutherford County has contractually agreed not to object to out-of-county waste. So if the board reads the region plan to prohibit that, it could be impairing existing contracts in violation of the Act. This is not a zoning hearing. This board has no jurisdiction or expertise in zoning matters, and zoning is not a part of the written plan. That said, BFI has plenty of properly zoned property for the proposed expansion and intends to comply with all applicable zoning requirements. But we'll be working with the planning department on that. And finally, this is not about whether political pressure or popular opinion is for or against the proposal. The board has an important statutory duty to ensure the integrity of its regional plan, but that role is also limited to review the proposal to determine if it's inconsistent with that plan, that is prohibited by the plan. It's not a popularity contest. So what does BFI's material include? We have BFI's original application, including the Part 1 that was submitted to TDEC and the additional information that is specifically requested in the region plan from 2001. Mike is going to have a substantive presentation in just a moment. And then we submitted written materials today, which I believe each of you has gotten a copy of here tonight because the email was too big to get through some servers. If anyone doesn't have a paper copy, I'm happy to get you one. So in conclusion, while your decision is very narrow, the board should understand that the expansion proposal is one part of a multi-point proposal that BFI has submitted to help Rutherford County and the region as a whole meet its goal of being statewide leaders in recycling and integrated waste management. With that, I'll bring Mike Klassen, the General Manager, back up.
Sorry, Michael, I'm going to interrupt you for a moment. Just for clarification, since legal counsel for Republic has pointed out some errors that they felt, procedural issues that took place, anything that we missed was purely unintentional. The TDEC plan formats have changed several times in the years since this program was implemented. We relied primarily on TCA, which has not changed, or which is readily accessible for our public notice information. Once we realize some things may not have been done in proper order, we are self-correcting with the extension of not holding, with having the second meeting in 2 weeks, or as close to 2 weeks as we can get, with extending the written notice comment time period for folks to write in, and providing the maps here, and then both the city of Murfreesboro and Rutherford County are going to be providing that information. So any misstep we took, we are self-correcting and going above and beyond to make sure that that information is out there, and anything skipped on was not intentional.
Chairman, one also, is my mic on this time? Can everybody hear me? I would just like to remind the members to seek their own counsel and not rely on Republic's legal advocate, with all due respect.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Ed.
Close to the mic, please.
Yes, sir. Okay, so we're going to start tonight with just a focus on the consistency of our proposed expansion with the region plan and all subsequent updates, and in fact, how this proposed expansion specifically supports the underlying objectives of the plan. But first, just wanted to kind of go through, provide a little bit of background on who we are, Middle Point itself, and then we can kind of go from there. So, Republic Services is the premier waste services company in the United States. You'll hear us kind of throughout the presentation say Republic or BFI or Middle Point. Republic owns and operates through its subsidiaries, which is BFI, all of the landfills, which is nearly 200 landfills in the United States. 36,000 employees, 5 million average pickups per day, and 16,000 trucks. But it's not really about what we do, but more how we do business that I think matters the most. Here we go. So Republic Services is consistently ranked by Fortune Magazine, Dow Jones, Barron's, S&P Global, all of the biggest names in business as one of the most sustainable companies, one of the best places to work, and one of the best places to work for women. And we're doing all of that right here in the community and have been since 1989. We really have a shared mutual interest with the region here and the way that we manage waste.
Point of order. Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
we are here to talk about expansion of a landfill, not about a Fortune 500 company. So, with all due respect, if you want to talk about the landfill, we'll talk about the landfill, but as far as Fortune 500, Women of the Year, Employee of the Year, we're talking about landfills and what we're going to do about it. So if you will, kind of fast forward this, if you don't have nothing, we got people that want to discuss the problem. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. So, let's talk about the landfill. So the proposed expansion that's in front of everyone here, the proposal, begins with Middle Point Landfill, which is located at the intersection of Jefferson Pike and Highway 231. Shown here on the screen, you see that location. The yellow boundary is the 808 acres currently owned by BFI. In black is shown the existing boundary hatched there in black of the current Middle Point landfill. It's 206 acres, all currently permitted and operated. Immediately to the south, it's not really shown, but the jagged edge in there is the closed, unlined Rutherford County landfills. The proposal that we're here talking about tonight is immediately to the north there, shown in red. So in red is about a 100-acre proposed expansion on land owned and zoned by BFI. That's looking at about a 25-year disposal capacity increase, although that number is still a little bit undetermined because we're only at part one of the application process. This is really an administrative effort. The detailed design and all of the engineering that goes along with that has not yet been completed and won't be completed until the part two application is submitted to TDEC. So why now? Really, it's all about site life here. The permitting process is an extensive, multi-year study and review by TDEC, including all siting, engineering, and operational standards. This proposed expansion is really one part of a broader proposal currently under review by Rutherford County and requested by Rutherford County for an integrated solid waste management system in which the county has specifically asked for guaranteeing 25 years of disposal capacity. As we had 2 slides ago, I did rush over it, but as we had up 2 slides ago, currently we anticipate end of our site life in 2028. It's about 6.5 years remaining of airspace for us. So this is really what's driving the proposal timeline, with submittal of the Part 1 application in April, and then completion of all of these various steps as we go. 2 things I'd like to highlight on this slide in particular. First, you see the red line there, a little hard to see on the screen. That's for February 2022. And what that correlates to is when we originally made our commitment to the Rutherford County, when we submitted our RFP response. In that, the Rutherford Commission requested that we delay any subsequent submittal of our Part 2 application to TDEC for 1 year from the original time that we submitted that Part 1 application. So in response to that, and in the interest of being a partner to the county, which we have been since 1989, we voluntarily said, okay, we're going to put the brakes on that submittal, and we're not going to do anything as far as a formal submittal of Part 2 until February of 2022. The other piece I'd like to call attention to is the gap you see, again, hard to see, I apologize for that, but from January 2023 there on the bottom, from the engineering plan submittal, that's Part 2, to the March of 2026 TDEC public hearing process. Within that process, that's really the opportunity for the technical review, the review from TDEC, subsequent opportunities for public comment about the variety of other issues that are out there. There are milestones set up for those opportunities within this process, but this current situation is really focused on one thing. And that is the proposed expansion consistent with the region plan? So that's why we're here tonight, seeking approval from the region board to confirm that our proposed expansion is in fact consistent with the plan. So section 9.2 of the 2001 region plan, including all subsequent updates, confirms that the Central Tennessee region's review, quote, review of any permit would only be to determine the permit's consistency with the region's solid waste plan. Section 9.2.1 of that same plan then outlines the permit review criteria that the Central Tennessee region uses. Again, there are lots of important issues, all of which we will have an opportunity to discuss at designated milestones through the process, but the purview for what is up for approval tonight is only consistency with the plan, and specifically the 4 criteria listed in the plan. I'll read those criteria just because of the screen size here. So those criteria, this is all taken directly from the region plan. Number 1, will the additional landfill volume be needed for the region to maintain acceptable disposal volume for the waste generated within the region? Number 2, will the location of the new landfill or extension within the region provide for more cost-effective disposal without sacrificing environmental acceptability? Number 3, is the location of the facility suitable for a landfill to serve the Central Tennessee region? In other words, landfills which are located on the outer edges of the region away from major Central Tennessee region population centers and designed to serve out-of-region waste will be considered to be not suitably located to serve the region. And number 4, will the cost impacts for providing infrastructure, roads, water, etc., for bringing out-of-region waste into the county exceed the cost savings provided by the additional landfill facility? So I want to talk about each one of these 4 in a little bit more detail and how specifically our proposed expansion complies with them. Criteria 1, really, is disposal volume needed in the region? Taken from the Rutherford County 2019 update, quote, when Middle Point closes, landfill use will be needed along with the non-landfill solutions. There are currently no other landfills with space capacity in Middle Tennessee without expansions or new developments. So beyond that quote, what additional landfill volume is needed for the region? So as the region plan clearly understood from that quote, and as supported by data taken from TDEC in their 2020 annual update, which is here presented on the screen.
Point of order.
Yeah.
We're limiting the presenters, or those that want to speak in the public comment, to 3 to 5 minutes, because that's what it says in here. The presenter is supposed to be limited to 15 minutes, and you've already gone over that, so I would strongly request that you wrap up the presentation.
Okay. I will definitely try and hurry my way through it. Thank you for pointing that out. So, is disposal capacity needed? We see here that if we eliminate Middle Point from the picture, if no expansion is approved, there is 0 years of disposal capacity remaining within the Central Tennessee region, and in fact, 0 disposal capacity remaining within 100 miles of the facility. The only disposal capacity that exists is between 100 and 150 miles away, which for context is going to a Knoxville or a Memphis or out of state. which of course results in significant costs to taxpayers here for that disposal capacity. Moving on quickly to criteria number 2, will the expansion provide more cost-effective disposal? So the Rutherford County 2019 update. If Middle Point closes, Rutherford County will incur a tipping fee, one that we had not had since 1994. Currently, solid waste is funded through a public services host agreement. So Rutherford County and Murfreesboro currently receive disposal at Middle Point for free for the life of the site. Simply put, it does not get more cost-effective than free, and this benefit extends through the entire life of Middle Point, including expansions. A no vote for an expansion is a yes vote for significant and abrupt taxation on the residents of Murfreesboro and Rutherford County. It results in less cost-effective disposal. Criteria number 3, is the location suitable to serve the Central Tennessee solid waste region? This is a relatively quick one. Absolutely yes. The location...
No, it's not.
So the location is located directly next to the largest population center, Murfreesboro, with over 150,000 residents. The implication behind what this criteria was for is it strategically located near the outskirts of a region in order to serve out of county. Instead, this facility is located directly where the people of the region need it most, and that's where we intend to leave it. So yes, it is suitably located. The fourth and final criteria is, will the cost impact of providing key infrastructure exceed the cost savings from the additional landfill? This is also a relatively quick one. Our expansion proposal is effectively to continue operations exactly as is. We're not looking to bring in any more waste or any more vehicles or anything different than exactly what's happening right now. All of the existing infrastructure is there, and no new infrastructure or investment is required by local government in order to facilitate this expansion. Like the rest of it is not coming up, so I'll just talk kind of off the cuff. So we have each of those 4. Yes, the proposed expansion clearly meets each of the 4 criteria. Number 1, is disposal capacity needed? Yes, Middle Point is the only disposal capacity in the region. 2, does the expansion provide cost-effective disposal? Yes, it does not get more cost-effective than free. 3, is the expansion located to serve the region? Yes, it is located adjacent to Murfreesboro, the population center. And lastly, does the cost savings of expansion exceed the cost necessary for infrastructure? Yes, it does. There is no cost required for additional infrastructure. Finally, just to wrap up, beyond these 4 primary criteria, the region plan updates highlights a 25% diversion goal, which is the foundation of a broader vision for growing into a modern integrated solid waste management system. And we absolutely share that vision and are excited to be the only company that submitted to all 6 of the county's criteria in their recent proposal. Those criteria included residential pickup of recyclables, processing of those recyclables at a facility constructed by BFI, public education, composting, curbside collection, reclamation of Rutherford County landfills, and a 25-year disposal capacity. Again, that disposal capacity was specifically asked for by the county, and that's what we're here to do today, as part of our submittal, to guarantee that disposal capacity exists. Because what the county clearly understood is that landfills support diversion and recycling, because, being honest, well, I'll say a truth that we all wish wasn't the case, but it is, and that is, no matter the amount of recycling or diversion or incineration or waste to energy or anything else, there will always be a fraction of the waste stream which has to be landfilled. And in that sense, landfills actually support diversion and recycling and act as a community asset. We had a figure that I would have liked to share up here subsequent, which included a land use plan for the Middle Point landfill, which included a specific concept that we've shared with the county for how we could use this facility as a revenue generating engine using the out-of-county host fees and the value of free disposal realized by both the city and county to be able to subsidize all of these other revenue negative and revenue neutral programs, things like public education, oftentimes recycling, including collection. By using Middle Point as the driving force for those other programs, that would help us realize and help the county realize their vision for Rutherford County. So ultimately, an expansion of Middle Point guarantees disposal capacity in the lowest cost and environmentally acceptable manner while supporting recycling and diversion in direct compliance with all criteria listed in the region plan and all subsequent updates. That concludes the presentation. Thank you for your time, and Mac, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, sir.
You got it.
Okay, with the board, we'll wait on all of our discussion, and we'll hear from our friends and neighbors first. Speaker number one, Miss Peggy Davenport. Right here. Up. Please try to be brief, but say what you need to say.
Yes, sir. Hi, I'm Peggy. A lot of y'all know me by Davenport, and I've lived here since 1976. At that time, the landfill was just for Rutherford County, and it was very small. We didn't have the problems that we do today. Approximately 17 years ago, that was mentioned in 2004, I think it was, our family and several others tried to come against those with the landfill and tried to stop this expansion. And we were told at that time that it would be at its peak and full in 10 years. Well, that was 5 years ago. I live within 2 miles of this, and my children live out in the area. My mother lives within about 1.5 miles on the other side of Jefferson Pike going toward Las Casas. The smell seems to be the very thing that everybody talks about and everything, but I want to bring something else to home. I had a water treatment system put on my water in 1994, and yes, that has to do with the second the second part of his illustration that he was talking about with the environment. It's very important. At that time, our water had double what a pool had to keep the chlorine, to keep the contaminations and stuff. That is very bad on your body. And that was in 1996. I got a treatment system by Echo. Well, last year it wasn't doing well, and the one that I had years ago quit working, so I had another one put on when my husband passed away 11 years ago. Make a story short, the gentleman from Robertson Water Treatment off of Thompson Lane put a new system on my whole house, and it softens my water, takes all the contaminants out. When he did all his illustrations, and I have a video if anyone ever wants to see it, he told us what was in our water, gave us graphs, and showed everything with the tablets and so forth and drops that he put in our water. We had traces of sewage. Now, anyone that has a brain that knows this landfill is right by the water knows it's contaminating. If you do not have a water treatment system, it's sad because you're drinking stuff you really don't know that you're drinking. My water is good now, and I feel safe with it again. I just want everybody to know that there's more at stake than saving money on getting your garbage disposed of. I would rather pay a little bit, or even my taxes go up a slight bit to have better health. I was diagnosed with breast cancer 2 years ago, and there's none, or 3 years ago in 18. There's none in my family. And there's countless others that have cancer that are right around the vicinity of this landfill. But so it's more than money, y'all. It really is. It's more than money. It's our health. Do you want to pass this on to your children and grandchildren? I don't. That's all I've got. Oh, and there's also 2 new schools going out in Walter Hill, a middle school and a high school. What kind of water are they going to be drinking? What kind of smell are they going to smell? What kind of things are going in the soil out there?
Ma'am, can I get your name and address again, please? Yes.
Second speaker will be Betty Davenport.
Don't. I learned from you. 9634.
You would speak closely into the mic, please, and give your name and street address, please.
Okay, I'm Betty Davenport. I live at 7319 Dunaway Chapel Road. I'm in Las Casas. I'm about a mile from the landfill. And my main concern of everything is the water, and is it being monitored close enough to know. My husband has leukemia. I don't know if that has anything to do with any of this or not, but he's dying anyway. And that's my top concern. And then, of course, the next, I think lots and lots of people are concerned with the smell. It ain't what it was when I got there 47 years ago. And you can't sit out in the yard and cook out and that without the smell. It hadn't reached my place till this past year. So something is not being, I think, cared for as well as it could be, or it doesn't seem like the smell would just keep getting worse and worse, and that's going to town. And then last but not least, it may not seem important, I don't know how many of you live anywhere near where I do on Jefferson Pike, but the trucks keep it a mess. Between the rocks on it, hit your windshields and bust them, and if you clean your car up real good and go through, you got to go to the car wash again. That may seem like a simple thing, but it's a mess down through there. It don't look like a nice country road anymore. But that's the third part of the main thing is the water I'm very concerned about, and I hope our county will take all this into consideration and consider the people, not the ones that is controlling it right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Hold the applause, please. We're not here for that. Matthew Bromley. Speak clearly into the mic. Your name and address, please.
Yes. My name is Matthew Blomley. I live at 514 Round Table Court. That's located in the Regency Park subdivision here in the city of Murfreesboro. I speak as a 7-year resident of North Murfreesboro. Before I lived in Regency Park, I lived off of River Rock Boulevard. Obviously never smelled anything over there, but when I moved to the Regency Park subdivision, it was clear that I was living near a landfill. And anecdotally, I like to tell this story that just several weeks after I moved into my house, I was unprepared for the smell. I actually called Atmos because I thought I had a gas leak outside. And that was 7 years ago. And I don't have any scientific way of measuring, but in the 7 years that I've lived there, both my wife and I think it's gotten measurably worse, the smell over the last 7 years. So one of the items that is in the plan that Mr. Klassen mentioned is the environmental concerns. And I didn't really hear him address that in his response. I think the smell is definitely an environmental concern, and I think the fact that it seems to be getting worse is an environmental concern. When you go to buy a house, there are things that you can do to research certain risks associated with buying a house. You can go look at the flood maps if your property is near a stream or a river to see what your level of risk is for having flooding. You can go down to your local government, find out traffic counts, or look at TDOT's website to find out traffic counts, to find out how much traffic will be going down your street. But there's really not a way that you can quantify the stench from a landfill. And certainly I knew that I was moving. I was buying a house in relatively close proximity to a landfill, but really until we moved in, there was really no way that we could know what to expect. And so my main concern is, obviously, one, I'm opposed to the expansion of the landfill on the grounds that the quality of life and the smell, which I do believe is an environmental factor, the quality of life, I think, is deteriorating for the north side of Murfreesboro and for the areas of Rutherford County around it because of the smell. And one thing that Mr. Klassen mentioned is Republic's track record, the quality of their company. Well, I think that's an important point because in my opinion, the track record is that there hasn't been much done to help mitigate the smell over the last 7 years that I've lived there. And I think track record is very important as a measure of future performance. And so I would urge the commission to vote to deny the proposed expansion. Thank you.
John Adams.
Good evening, neighbors. My name is John Adams. My wife Dawn is here tonight. 1920 Masterpiece Avenue in Murfreesboro. We're on the north side, 3 miles from the dump as the crow flies. If I walk a block over to Osborne, I can see it because it rises up above the rest of the area there. So I came to MTSU in the 70s. My wife and my family came back in 1990, so 31 years. And I know that Mike was up here speaking tonight from Atlanta. It's kind of hard to listen to somebody from Atlanta talk to you about your quality of life, but let me tell you, we understand it real well in Celebration Cove in back of Oakland Middle School. And things like opening your windows, going to sleep, waking up, your whole house smells terrible. And that gas leak thing, we've had that many times where we thought it's got to be a gas leak. Taking a walk, sitting on your porch. It's tough when you got invested a lot in that house. So it feels a little overwhelming in here tonight. Because there's a lot of money involved in this. A lot of money, I know. There are things going on behind the scenes. There's relationships here. But there's been a tremendous amount of new trash, garbage, whatever you want to call it, in the COVID year. It's unbelievable what's gone out there to the landfill. And so there are alternatives. There's 31 counties, maybe 27, depending on which report, bringing their stuff here. 70% other counties coming to Murfreesboro, 3 miles from my house, putting their waste there. 3,700 tons a day. It boggles my mind. It's like listening to the federal government talk about our spending. You know, that number it just blows me away. But we can do better. We can. There are alternatives. I know there are. I know there are people in the room that have alternatives that will work. And like the First Lady, I'd be willing to pay a little bit. The free thing doesn't really bother me in comparison to quality of life and loving where you live. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Christopher Jordan. Doing well, you sir.
Oh, man.
Would name the street address, please.
My name is
5 minutes, please.
Yes, sir. My name is Christopher Jordan, 1808 Mosaic Trail, Murfreesboro, Tennessee. I came in and put in my RFP for a new solution, and I'm not going to do much talking, but I have my safety man for my corporation. I have put in an RFP for a whole solution. And I'm going to give him my safety man, Mr. Aaron. He'll tell you more about it. And I want to say, I don't agree to the expansion.
Thank you, Chris. I've got to be through a lot of proposals lately and listen to our friends over at Republic. I'll leave it at that. It's funny to hear you sit there and they go through this stuff, and I've gotten to see some other proposals from them, and they talk about free, it's free, yes, free, but is anything really free when you deal with the government? Let's just be honest, it is what it is, right? There's no new money going to infrastructure. Well, that's a lie, because roads have to be paved, right? And you have, as the lady talked about, you got trucks on them. I mean, side note, if your car windshield gets broken, I would call Republic Services and tell them their truck did that. They might be able to do something through insurance. Being a construction guy, I'm aware of that. Diversion goal, one thing they like to talk about, they'll bring up these numbers, they'll bring up these words for you to use. A lot of us aren't privy to this information. We don't know what's a diversion goal, what's all this, right? They kind of talk about, but they never said, what is their diversion number? They never, what is it? What have they diverted from, waste to the landfill, right? What's their recycle? I know they all do recycling. He talks about, they're big over the country, over the world. They're a multi-billion-dollar industry. How much do they actually recycle from their product? Is it just one piece of thing from the recycle? So if 10 things go into the recycling bin, only 9 actually go into the landfill, and 1 gets recycled and balled out. So we have a company that we've again proposed an alternative solution to the process. Recycling everything, and then gasification plasma to the rest of the remaining. Nothing goes back into the landfill. Some people in the county didn't like the idea, I guess, but we've proposed it. We've thrown it out there. I think it's a great deal. It actually works in other parts of the country. Republic, Waste Management, the big business companies decide that it's not going to work, it doesn't work, it hasn't worked. Well, their business to make money is to put stuff in the landfill. That's their business model. They're not going to change from it. It is what it is. It's only going to get bigger. We have to expand. We have to expand. They've expanded for years, right? You've all been here for 30, 40, 50 years, right? Has it only gotten smaller or bigger? Our company wants to mine, get rid of the landfill. That's what we want to do. Potentially be done with the old landfill, in 5 to 10 years. Get rid of the landfill. That's our goal. But again, some people don't think it's the right idea. Some people don't. And we'll keep pushing on. The other side is some, like you talked about, environmentals. We've seen some reports. Again, your lead numbers, your arsenic, your cobalt, nickel, it's obviously increasing over the years from the mid-90s to the early 2000s to even late to last year. This stuff has actually continued to grow up, as the lady said, in her water system. Again, what are you drinking? What are our animals on farms drinking and eating? Again, we're next to a river. So, thank you.
A minute. Well, no, I give it to him. I have exactly 1 minute left. So I know that Waste Management is in litigation in Davidson County. I've been following this thing for the last 15 years. I've been over here at Rutherford County for 4 years. Told them I'll do it. I'll remind the Rutherford County landfill. And then with that situation, and open up opportunities for the county to have a residual income. Everybody know about residual income. Everybody. So right now, I'm just letting you know as the public, once we mine the landfill, it's like 90 acres, 12 foot deep of topsoil. Topsoil is one of the highest commodities in America right now. And then you have lumber. So right now, topsoil is on the rise. So you got 90 acres, 12 foot deep. I didn't did the calculation. That's $90 million, Mayor. 90 million that can come into the coffers for us remining Rutherford County landfill. Now, I proposed some things, but I haven't been invited back to give them the offer. So it's time for me to go. But I want to be able to resolve the problem and end this disgusting problem, because I got a 12-year-old daughter who lives here, and I want her to grow up without dealing with hard water, toxins in the water.
Okay, Doc.
Amen.
Thanks, sir. Number 6, Meredith Kaminsky, Carmichael. Thank you. Name address, please.
Sure.
Under 5
Hello,
minutes, please.
I'm Meredith Carmichael. I live at 518 Twin Oak Drive in Murfreesboro. I'm a member of the Rutherford Neighborhood Alliance and a former member of SOCM, so I never imagined I'd have to be back up here talking about trash again, but I do. Maya Angelou said that when someone shows you who they are, you should believe them. Republic Services has shown us who they are. They say they care about this community, and they show us the opposite. They've had years to begin handling trash ethically, sustainably, and responsibly, and they haven't. They said, well, you never asked us to, but if you had a company ethic of doing the right thing, you would have offered it. Instead, we have the stink and no remediation unless there's a lot of pressure. I'm real tired, like everybody else. I can't go in my garden. A while back, the commission said no to expansion, and I would hope that you all would honor that, because the county doesn't want them. I also heard the commission voice some desire for transparency in their transaction with whoever handles the trash. Republic isn't transparent either. They've shown us that when they tried to blame the stink on the water and sewer department. It was proven to be Republic stink, and they said they'd work on it, but within the last 2 weeks, it's still been there, and I don't even live that close. If we want a company with ethics, they've shown us they play dirty. I've had 3 different trash companies. At least 2 were driven out of business by Republic by undercutting them. And after the competition is gone, boy, those fees go up for Republic. There are some other towns who recently, Baton Rouge, Lafayette, Louisiana, Shakopee, Minnesota, for instance, who've recently ended their dealings with Republic over billing and service issues. So their fake assertions that they care about this community and they'll give us great service and progressive solutions are all ringing untrue, for me anyway. They've shown us who they are, greedy, underhanded, and only interested in continuing to use Rutherford County as their lucrative dumping ground, without concern for the people who live here. I believe them when they've shown us who they are. And I think this community can do better. And I hope that you all will vote no and not let them expand. And I wanted to address number 2 at least a little bit. The costs, and some people already have a bit, but the costs to the community of them expanding are only going to increase in health, in the environment, in people moving away, and houses not being sellable. We have a great real estate market. That's not going to last if the stink keeps growing. And this is becoming a major urban center in Tennessee. That's not going to continue either. You know, we're set to become possibly number 4 largest city in the state. And how's that going to be with this giant landfill? There's no reason for us to continue taking 27 counties worth of trash. There just isn't. Please vote no.
Matt Ferry. Recruiting along the way?
I'm recruiting on the way, yes.
All right, say your name and street address, please, and you're on the clock, 5 minutes or less.
All righty. Hello, everyone. My name is Matt Ferry. I'm a part of a coalition group called Stop the Super Dump, also with allied organizations like Rutherford Neighborhood Alliance and SOCM, which is statewide organizing for community empowerment and environmental organization here in Tennessee. I'll try to keep this short and sweet because I know we got a lot of people here. Trash has got to go somewhere, right? We have to have a landfill, and I get that. But landfills should not be that big, and they should not be that stinky. And we've got a real problem, not just with the size, but with the operations. What is going on in the landfill? The stink is traveling across the county now. That's not good. That's very bad. Residents are very frustrated with that, and in short, if there's a real environmental catastrophe that happens, it's game over on the growth here in Rutherford County. Like she said, we're the 5th largest county in Tennessee. We are growing, growing, growing. That growth is going to stop if this continues. Now, we do have what seems to be a pretty sweet deal with Republic Services, aka BFI, with the tipping fees. It's free for Murfreesboro residents, but recently they have snuck on fees on the water bill, and you can't drive up to the landfill and dump for free anymore. This sounds like a very cozy arrangement, but as one of the speakers said earlier, this costs more than just money. There's people's lives, their livelihood is in danger. And a new study that Sockham had done with a Meharry medical research student at Meharry Medical College in Nashville showed that the closer you are to the landfill, the more likely you are to have increased risk of respiratory illness. So this could just be the beginning of an even worse problem, and that's why I think that we should say no to the expansion of the landfill. One thing I also like to address is the fact that we get between $800,000 and $1.2 million every year from selling space inside the landfill. And this might seem like a sweet deal also, except that money isn't going into future solid waste uses. There's not going into what we could be doing in Rutherford County. Instead, it just goes to draw down the budget, Rutherford County government budget. For 33 years, this landfill has been there. I don't know how long it's been since we've been receiving these checks. This money should have been going into other alternative solid waste solutions, and it hasn't. That's been a big problem. So I'm here today to say, we should probably not recommend an expansion of the landfill, but it's much worse than that. We need to come up with some real solutions, something different. Recycling is great. We need more than recycling. Composting is great. We need more than composting. We need to change the culture of waste disposal in Middle Tennessee. One thing I also like to say is about the practices again. The stink is because of lax oversight at the landfill. So we also need more local control, more local authority, increased transparency of the operations that are going on in the landfill, or this will continue into the future. So I've got a lot more to say about this, but I know we have lots and lots of speakers to come. But I also just want to tell y'all that I put a petition up on the internet and asking TDEC and asking Governor Bill Lee and asking the Central Regional Planning Committee to reject the expansion of the landfill. I have over 4,000 signatures from Murfreesboro residents, and I'd like to give that to the board today, if they don't mind. So those are 4,000 people, some of which might be here, some not, who say no to this. I think we need to listen to their voice and act accordingly on this. And I know that we're not going to see Republic Services, stop shop and get out of town. We need to work with Public Services, but I feel like we're getting a raw deal from them, and we've been getting a raw deal for 33 years. So something needs to change. Anyway, thank you for your time, and thank you for having this public comments meeting today and allowing me to speak about this.
Tom Harris.
Thank you.
Name and address, please.
Thank you. My name is Tom Harris. I live at 111 Chancellor Court off of Jefferson Pike, northeast of the dump. Okay. You have gone into a lot of detail tonight, I noticed, to explain what we can't say, what we can't change, what we can't stop, and that all other options except yours are out of the question. That sounds like you wanted us to give up and shut up. Now, I'm just saying that's what it sounded like sitting back there listening to your presentation. And you also said that if the landfill was to move, that it would be a big increase in taxes. And it was because you'd have to cover the added expense of transporting this. Well, that may be, but of course that's what they said about breaking up Ma Bell. A lot of times when you get enough people working on the same job, it gets solved. Now, I don't know what all you've lived up to contractually on your regulations and your stipulations and the way you've run it. I'm looking at this from one point of view. I'm just saying Rutherford County, and you notice the stink, of course, seems to be the big subject. Rutherford County has fulfilled its enlistment term. There was a time on it, or we wouldn't be standing here discussing an extension. There was a set time. Apparently, we agreed to a set time. I think that BFI should live up to that time limit. I think it's time for BFI to say, thank you, Rutherford County, you've been great. We need to move on like we said we would. Thank you.
Martha, thank you.
Hi, my name's Martha, and I live at 2211 Haddington Circle in Murfreesboro. When we moved here in 2016, people told us the landfill would be open about 2 or 3 more years. Now, 5 years later, they want to stay open and increase in size. It's unconscionable that this city, state, or anyone would allow 27 counties or more to use our community for their landfill. This company will say they are operating safely, I'm sure. I'm skeptical when every company says that. It's obvious that Republic is not in the business to put our community or our health first. When we regularly smell hazardous gases coming from the landfill or see the polluted water in the East Fork of the river, we know our health is seriously at risk. Much of our water source is tainted by this river. Our recreational lake is light green. If you've lived in other states, you'll know that that's not normal. That's not a normal color. When my house water was tested, it showed nitrates. Those are cancer-causing. We regularly smell the landfill around town, and my house is approximately 6 miles from the landfill. We know these gases are not inert if you research them, and the dear lady, the second speaker, said her husband had leukemia and she wasn't sure if it was the air. Well, look, all we have to do is look at what the gases consist of, and we know that cancer-causing is one of those. And I'm so sorry for you and your family. Thank you in advance for limiting the damages to our community, our family, your family, and mine.
James Rapper, are you close? Okay.
James Raper, 2327 Garrison Cove. I've lived there about 3 years, but before then, I lived in Las Casas. pretty much my whole adult life. And I worked in Smyrna, and so I had a choice either to drive to Jefferson Pike or drive to Murfreesboro to go to work. Go to work and come back home. And so most of the time I went Jefferson Pike because, you know, pressures of life. Everybody runs late, and that's my fastest route. So I do know what the landfill smells like. I drove by it every day for right at 30 years. I still smell it. I moved to Murfreesboro, and for some reason, I smell it more. Maybe it's the way the wind blows. Maybe if I lived in Las Casas, I only caught it when the wind came out of the north and blew it toward my house. I could smell it, the landfill. But anyway, now I live in Murfreesboro and I smell it more, so. Well, at the time I was driving to work, I had to drive Jefferson Pike. And from 840 to 231, Walter Hill, the further you got closer to the landfill, the worse the road got. There was trash everywhere. Then the road was getting dirtier and dirtier the closer you got. And so when you got to Walter Hill, from there to the entrance to, I don't know what we want to call it, BF5, Republic, or wherever we're calling it, there was trenches on the side of the road where the dirt had built up because it wasn't grading. You know, all the trucks kept coming out, and it kept getting bigger and bigger. Then every time it rains, it was just a cesspool of water built up there. You know, BFI, whoever, me think it's their responsibility, maybe it's not, to clean off the roads and wash them, you know, to keep all that stuff from getting so bad. Besides the smell, now we got I just call it the trash. It's filthy out there. That being that point, then my next one was in March 14th of 2019. The Tennessee Department of Environmental Conservation on Thursday announced a precaution fish consumption advisory for bass species in a portion of East Fork, Stones River, Rutherford County. The advisory extends from West Fork, Stones River, in the upper Percy Priest Reservoir upstream to Betty Ford Road near Las Casas, Walter Hill Lake, and small portions of creeks. But they did go on and conclude, and they said they are not aware of any local source of mercury on East Fork and Stones River. Well, in that portion, it's pretty good, you know, 4 or 5 miles. The only thing it's there is BFI. But, you know, they say they don't know who it is, so I have to agree with them. If they don't know, I don't know. But it just stands to reason. You got a landfill there, and you have mercury, you know, fish contamination. You know, it just stands to me, being an old country person, that's where your problem's at. But that being said, I just want to say something about this. The smell is horrendous. And he was talking about what they was going to do for us and going to do blah, 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 blah. We've been talking about the smell for how many years?
1 minute.
And okay, we've been talking about the smell for how many years? They hadn't done it yet. What are their plan to do about the smell? To me, the smell is terrible. But I just wish they would do something about the roads, the smell. If they're going to stay, make it more appealing for us, people who have to live here. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Deborah Inman. Name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Debbie Inman. I live on Wade Springs Road. I'm less than 3/4 of a mile from Middle Point Landfill. I moved here 22 years ago. wasn't too bad back then. You'd smell the dump every once in a while. It was something that felt that I could live with. I'd really like to consider my home a safe place for myself and my family. I don't feel that way anymore. The smell has gotten horrendous. It's gone from smelling it occasionally to a daily occurrence. The dirt has gotten horrendous. Where I'm so close to it, I actually get the dirt and the wind coming to my house. I can clean off all my patio furniture, and within a week you can take your finger and it's brown. It's not green with pollen, it's brown. It's a brown gray. It looks just like the dump. I had no intention of getting up here and speaking tonight, but after listening to everybody, I thought, well, get up there and say something. You need to. I had a dog recently who would never drink our water. I had to buy water for him. And he passed away last month from lymphoma. Personally, I think it was from sniffing the ground, breathing the dust. It broke my heart. But anyways, now it's not like it used to be. It's getting worse and worse. The only time they ever work on the smell, work on the road, the dirt in the road, is when everybody gets really upset and starts complaining, and then they might go out there for a week or so and make it a little better, and then it just gets worse. The cookies at Christmas time was ridiculous, going around and leaving cookies on everybody's doorstep, trying to butter everybody up, and we're the nice people that we want to be the good neighbor. Well, they're not the good neighbor. They're deceitful. They tell you what you want to hear and then turn around and stab you in the back. And folks, don't forget, landfills do catch on fire and they do blow up. The statistics might not be a lot of them, but that'd be a terrible thing. We'd not only lose, we'd be like people in Florida are right now with trying to dig everybody out from underneath the rubble. But everybody needs to vote no for this. It's time for them to move on. They've extended their lives here. Enough is enough. After all these years, it's time. It's no longer a rural community. There's too many people living here. There's too many apartment buildings being built nearby. There's schools being built. It's just time for them to move on. They've outlived their life expectancy for us. Thank you.
Carl Bering. Yes. Well, I didn't pronounce it correctly, but I was close.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Thank you, members of the committee, for being here, especially you from out of town, our neighboring counties. Elected officials, Mayor, thank you for being here. Appreciate this time to talk to you. My name is Carl Burning. I live on a little junk farm on Herschel Hudson Road in Las Casas. Others have spoken to you tonight. Thank you for my wife. She made me write this down and read it because I'll talk too long unless I have a guide. I'll be here all night. And I won't be nice, will I, Bill? Others have spoken of the terrible stench of Middle Point, and I too have experienced that odor at my home. Others have spoken of the traffic and the abuse and the refuse on our roadways. Both are serious problems and have never been adequately addressed by Republic BFI. I'm here to speak about our land and our water. Rutherford County is located on top of the Lebanon Rock Formation. Thus, the most part of this county, we have very shallow soil depth. On my little piece of ground, I might dig 6 or 8 feet and before I hit a limestone, but a very few feet away, I might dig 2 feet to hit solid rock. The rest of my place, you're standing on rock when you started. There's no soil here to speak of. The requirement to cover refuge with soil mandates the Republic buy hundreds of cubic yards of earth on a continual basis. To make their profit, it has to be trucked in from mostly Rutherford County. The scars left in our county from removing the earth will be seen forever. It took millions of years for that soil to accumulate, deposited here, and it will take millions of years to replace it when it is raped off the topsoil of the Lebanon limestone formation. Part of our county will look like a cratered moonscape. It will be useless. It won't grow anything. It will only create cesspools of mosquitoes and animals. It'll never be good for building on. It's just wasted forever. Now, we all know that Stones River is our water source and probably the major factor why our city and county were founded here. I seriously doubt that any honest person in this room thinks that the Stones is not polluted after it passes Middle Point Landfill. Oh, we've been told that it's been tested by Republicans. I've never seen any data. I've never seen the results. If the Republic is such a good neighbor, they ought to publish these results at least quarterly, 4 times a year. If our state and federal legislatures were paying attention, they ought to require the EPA or the Corps of Engineers to test or pay for private testing of our river above and below the landfill. There are rumors that testing and visual inspections have been conducted, but folks may be intimidated to bring forth. I really don't know. I do know that living out there over 40 years, I no longer see evangelists coming to the river to pray. I've not seen a good baptism in the Stones River since Hector was a pup. I mean, those good people must know you can't wash away sins with polluted water of the Stones. It just won't work. We're in a conundrum. Republic makes millions bringing in tons of garbage and charging by the ton. They scoop up additional tons of Rutherford County soil, our home, to cover the garbage. They're here to make money. We're here to have a better place to live. Your vote will indicate your values. Is it more important for Republic to make millions or for Rutherford Countyans to have a better place to live? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Julie Burns. After she speaks, I'll ask the question if we're going to continue or not, but she reached out to me a long time ago wanting to make sure she got to speak, so I wanted to get to her anyway.
I'm Julie Burns. I live at 2720 Hutchinson Road, which is a couple miles from the college, and it's 10 miles from the landfill. I want to thank this board for letting us speak today and letting us talk about what really matters to us in spite of what the attorney suggested we should limit ourselves to. And most of what I want to say has been said very well by others here, but I hate to not speak since I've been stewing about this for so many years. So I'm going to go ahead and quickly state what I had written down. Our city and county leaders are opposed to this request for the expansion. Many, many citizens agree. We've been forced to smell it when we go outside our homes or drive through the area. Numerous people have reported that the odor has actually permeated their homes with the windows and doors closed. I can't imagine that because it is a nauseating odor. And then the city spent tens of thousands of dollars trying to figure out where the smell was coming from after people complained enough, and indeed, in the end, after that much money spent, they found it was from the landfill. And as Matt Ferry mentioned earlier, a recent Meharry Medical College research survey did determine that there were significantly more cases of respiratory illnesses the closer people lived to the landfill. And so, of course, the odor issue has increased as the size of the landfill has increased. And since we thought the contract was going to end when the landfill became full in approximately 6 years, we at least felt like we had something we could look forward to. It would be over by then. Now, of course, that's up in the air. As concerned citizens demanded and as Mayor Ketron endorsed, the county government has begun a process of planning for a future that would use landfilling as a last resort. We could contract with companies that provide recycling and composting of garbage instead of the short-sighted method of creating a mountain of trash right on the bank of the river, the same river where we get our drinking water. Our county could become a model of progressive waste handling, taking advantage of state-of-the-art technology to reduce what we bury by 80 to 90%. This is referred to as a zero-waste goal and was recently adopted by the Metro Nashville for their 10-year solid waste plan. In fact, their local solid waste board was able to deny an expansion of the Bordeaux landfill based on the fact that this was in their plan. And concerning the operating history of Republic here, other than the odor issue, they've disregarded the Walter Hill community in particular, and tonight we've heard of people that live in that community. They've performed illegal blasting several years ago that damaged people's homes. They never compensated the people. It was determined to be illegal by TDEC. They don't take responsibility for the trash-strewn roads that are leading to the dump, stripping the acres of soil in order to cover the trash every day, which of course apparently isn't done every day or we wouldn't have the smell. And I assume they're causing property values in the area to plummet. It's time for a change, not more of the same. If this landfill is expanded into a super dump as proposed, it will be negatively impacting our quality of life and our environment for decades to come. I hope this board will recommend that TDEC deny the permit application. Thanks.
That is the first 13 speakers. There's roughly 10 more listed. Do the 10 that are present listed still want to speak, or they're going to say the same thing's already been said? All right, Mike Litton, do you want to speak? Name and address in 5 minutes or less,
My name is
please.
Mike Linton. I live at 155 Spence Creek Lane here in Murfreesboro. There are a lot of high emotions in our meeting tonight. I'm very glad to see so many people here. But of course, there's a bit of an irony. We're in the courthouse and we're talking about stench. Stench has been talked about in this courthouse for a long time. I'm the president of the Rutherford Neighborhood Alliance, a 501c4 organization of volunteers that has for almost 25 years worked as a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization dedicated to open and lawful government. For the last 5 years, the Rutherford Neighborhood Alliance has been looking into the issue of our local landfill and the larger issue of trash management. We have hosted meetings with representatives of state agencies, entrepreneurs dealing with strategies of trash management, and visited various trash management sites. Again, we have been dealing with this for a while. Our study has led our membership to strongly oppose expansion of the current BFI landfill because it is a significant environmental and economic problem for Rutherford County that diminishes the quality of life for our county's residents. Here are the reasons why. Number one, we've heard this before. Stench from the landfill frequently fills the air of the landfill's immediate vicinity of Walter Hill, a stench that sometimes radiates to the area around MTS campus and even to Las Casas. Besides the nuisance, the stench certainly lowers property value in the local area. Furthermore, an ever-expanding regional trash site makes Rutherford County's Chamber of Commerce's program of Destination Rutherford increasingly problematic. Two, a study done by graduate chemistry students at MTSU found the landfill leaching veterinary pharmaceuticals into the Stones River. The RNA has received reports of truckloads of dead livestock repeatedly being hauled to the landfill and dumped. It's possible that these carcasses might be the source of these pharmaceuticals. The health effect of these trace pharmaceuticals in our drinking water hasn't been locally studied, but it's unlikely to be beneficial. Third, the landfill requires tens of thousands of tons of dirt to be dumped on it, covering each layer of fresh trash. This dirt is frequently being stripped from neighborhood land that was once productive farmland or forest, leaving behind shelves of rock. These rock shelves are a potential flooding problem, since they cannot absorb and dissipate the rainwater in the way the former farmland and forest could. Furthermore, the stripping of the soil leaves this land now forever agriculturally unproductive. That's an important word, forever. It will never again grow crops or raise livestock. Not only is this landfill itself agriculturally useless, the areas abutting it are agricultural dead zones. I urge you to think about this not as a landfill, but as a dead zone. To summarize, the landfill demeans the quality of life of citizens living in its vicinity, and you've heard from them tonight, and potentially makes the whole county less desirable to people seeking to relocate their families and businesses. 2, it potentially contributes to the ill health and even morbidity of the people of the region. And 3, it is literally a dead zone in our county, negatively impacting the public health, negatively impacting the pleasure of life in the region, and expanding a dead zone. These are not cost-effective solutions to the waste management problem. They are extraordinarily expensive. The members of the Rutherford Neighborhood Alliance urge a no vote on the matter of Republic's expansion from you. And if you will just give me one more minute, the Rutherford Neighborhood Alliance has been active for a long time. The politicians, we've had wonderful working relationships with our politicians here in Rutherford County. But we urge you to remember to have your own legal counsel. I am not an attorney. I do not a member of the bar. But remember, when an attorney comes to you from a vendor, the attorney is representing the vendor, not you. And that is the vendor's attorney's interpretation of the law. So I urge you, please seek independent legal counsel in your deliberations. Thank you very much.
Trent Parrish, do you want to speak, or you just want to stand up and say opposed or against? Yes.
Right down the road from former Councilman Eddie Slubman. Y'all may know him. My father is Tom Parrish, and my mother is Julie Parrish. I am born and raised here in the borough. My family has resided in Murfreesboro for over 100 years. We sold our land that is now home to the Murfreesboro Electric Company. So I have deep roots in this town, and what is happening in Middle Point Landfill is a slap in the face to all the citizens of this town, county, and the whole state of Tennessee. It was revealed in 2008 that Middle Point Landfill had been accepting low-level radioactive waste at the landfill for years. They never told us, the public, and didn't even bother telling our elected officials. We did not know how much was dumped or the radiation levels, as they decided not to tell us. They were made to stop because of public outrage and the help of local officials. The landfill is a municipal landfill and sits on the banks of a river. Municipal landfills are not designed to hold nuclear waste, even if it is low-level radioactive waste. I called the EPA. They told me everything's above board. There are other radioactive materials as well. A common smoke detector has americium in it, okay? Americium has a half-life of 432 years, all right? And it can decay into another it's called Neptunium-237. It has a half-life of 2.14 million years. That's how long a problem we're going to be dealing with. Okay? As landfills decay, they pose risk of underground fires. Middle Point has already had some of these fires, according to the EPA. If a fire were to reach any of this radioactive material and get hot enough, it could cause a catastrophic chain of events that will severely harm this area. All sorts of radioactive particles would float through the air into our lands, onto our rivers, into our schools, and into our homes. I highly recommend you watch the documentary Atomic Homefront to get a better understanding of our situation. The whole area could be ruined and our lives put at risk. Not only that, but the whole state. 75% of all low-level radioactive waste in the country is dumped in municipal landfills in Tennessee. Middle Point Landfill and Republic Services lied to us in 2008. They lied to us about not expanding, and I expect them to continue lying and misleading the public. Therefore, it is up to us, the public, to do all we can to stop this landfill expansion from happening. Sign every petition you can. Tell all your neighbors, tell all your friends, call your local representatives, call your state representatives, and demand that Middle Point should not be expanded, and it is a danger to us all. Thank you very much.
Justin Babb. Was it close? Justin Babb? Okay.
My name's Justin Babb. I live at 3326 Vintage Grove Parkway in the reserve off of Compton. So I'm a 22-year military veteran. I've been serving in the Tennessee National Guard that entire time, and I've lived in Murfreesboro since 2001 when I came here to go to MTSU. I moved to Tennessee from a small town in Alabama, and when I drove through this square, it immediately made me fall in love with this city. And after going to school here, I decided to stay here. I took a full-time job with the National Guard, and I now serve as a helicopter pilot out of Nashville. When my wife and I bought our first house, I'd come home from my second tour in Iraq, and we bought off Compton Lane in the Hawks Ridge subdivision. And I started with the Walter Hill Fire Department as a volunteer firefighter in the community because it just seemed like the right thing to do to give back to a place I love so much. And when we moved into that subdivision, which is just a mile or so down from the reserve subdivision here, there was no smell back then. That was 2009. We didn't smell anything over there. If we did, it was very rare that it would blow through. But every day what we did was we drove down Compton, and I drove down Jefferson Pike to go to work at the base in Smyrna. And more and more as the years progress, you see more of the trash trucks on the road going back and forth, tearing up the road and clogging up the traffic down that way. But we passed this subdivision called the Reserve, and my wife and I dreamt of living in that neighborhood. We used to drive through it when we were younger, when we had our first daughter, and we thought that's exactly where we want to be. And so just a few years ago in 2018, we moved into the reserve. Now, I was deploying to go to Kosovo. So when we bought our house, I flew in from Fort Hood, Texas. We closed on our house. We went to Wilderness at the Smokies. I came back, slept one night in that house, and then I deployed over to Kosovo, and I was in Kosovo, gone for about a year when I left. Now, while I was gone, my wife had me added to this neighborhood group that we have called the Reserve. It was a closed group for that neighborhood, and I used to see posts while I was deployed, and people would talk about, man, Mount Murfreesboro is stinking it up again, Mount Trashmore's this and that. And as a helicopter pilot and as a test pilot, my maintenance test flight area runs from that landfill back up towards Lebanon. And I've flown over it a lot. I know how big it is. I've seen it from the air. And I used to sit there and think, y'all think you got it bad back there, buddy. We got a air sensitive sensor over here, so they can put it in our medical records how bad the air is here. You think it stinks there, you ought to be in Kosovo right now. And then I came home. And buddy, when I came home, I have smelled Kosovo. I have smelled trash burned in Iraq. I've lived near burn pits in Iraq where they burn body parts. And I've stood there near a bucket full of diesel fuel and burned off feces. And I can tell you the difference between daggum sewage and trash, my friend. And that's not sewage that I'm smelling over at my house that I worked my tail off to get into. That's freaking trash. And I'll tell you, the only thing I wish that I could smell right now is tar burning outside as old as this courthouse is to ride y'all out on a rail. Because I've had about enough of it. And I've had enough of the lies. And you want to talk about leadership? Our leadership's sitting right here, and I hope to hear their voice as clearly as I hear you talk about the leadership of your company. Because I'm tired of it, man. I smell this in the nicest house I've ever lived in. I grew up poor in Alabama. This is a dream I'm living. I'm living my American dream, and I'm having to suffer through it because of what you guys are doing. And I fly over that pit, and I'm going to tell you what, you talk about burning it off. I've looked at it under night vision goggles, and I've looked at it during the day and at night without goggles on, and I can't see a whole lot of flame coming off of the top of it. I think we've had enough, and I'm relying, just like the rest of these people, on y'all to make sure that we don't have to suffer through this anymore. Veterans that live in my neighborhood, like myself, have increased PTSD and anxiety over it. I took mortar rounds while trash pits burned in Iraq, and now I got to smell that. You think I don't wake up at night thinking about that? You're out of your mind. Ask my wife. She listens to me scream through it. That's all I've got to say.
Macy Brown. Name and address, please. Pull the mic down so you can speak into it.
My name is Macy Brown, and my address is 312 Autumn Glen Drive, and I'm about 2 miles away from the landfill. The things that I wanted to say, most people already touched on it, but only 2 things, okay? First is, okay, this landfill next to the river, this close to our drinking supply, should have never happened in the first place, okay? Should have never happened, okay? But we can't go back and change the past. But we can change the future. It doesn't have to grow, and it doesn't have to get worse than it is now, okay? So that's one. The other thing is, okay, we have to take responsibility upon ourselves about the amount of trash there is in the landfill. We wouldn't have a problem with where to put this trash and where the landfill should go next, or the need for expansion as quickly as we have if we all did our part by lessening our trash. We all have to do it. Think about it every day. Be conscientious, okay? Because it's very easy for us to go to this grocery store, just bring in 10 plastic bags without thinking that it has to go somewhere. It has to go somewhere, okay? It's our trash that is in this landfill. Even if they moved it somewhere else, it's still going to affect another part of another community, even if it's away from us, okay? So we have to think this way, and we have to take upon ourselves, whatever you do and everything you do, okay, you have to change. My husband and I, we live off of Jefferson Pike, and every time we drive towards 231, we can see the mountain just getting bigger and bigger, okay? And it reminds me every day that I have to make less trash. And I just want to say, let's all make less trash. Think about composting, because that helps so much. We just started doing that. But that's like hundreds of pounds of waste that doesn't have to go to the landfill, okay? So I'm just going to urge all of us to try. And not, there's always we're going to have to make some amount of trash, but we don't have to make that much trash. I mean, the amount of trash in the landfill doesn't have to grow that fast if we all just think about it. And that's the part that I want to say, you know, let's take the responsibility upon ourselves too for the future. But definitely no on expansion of this landfill right here in our community.
John Smith, or is that an alias? Name and street address and speak into the mic, please.
John Smith, 2014 Creek Walk Drive, Murfreesboro. You know, I don't envy these guys sitting up here. I've served on a Planning and Zoning Commission, different state, different county for many years, and one thing I learned that it wasn't always a popularity contest, but you had to do what was right. And I remember we had a couple of lawyers made a proposal to our Planning and Zoning Commission. They wanted to, they had some land, and they wanted to donate it to a 501c3 organization to build a summer camp for handicapped children. The only problem was that it was in a beautiful valley, bottom of several hills, that went underwater with flash flooding several times a year. Their idea was, well, we'll put the tents on stilts. You know, then when at the end they said, if you don't approve this and give us a permit, we're going to sue you. Our attitude was, we're not going to put a bunch of handicapped children underwater. Don't care if you sue us or not, go for it. But it was a great idea, wrong place. When I didn't live in Murfreesboro at that time, but I used to come here in 1989. And in 1889, you did not need a street map to get around in Murfreesboro. And I would venture a guess that having a landfill on Jefferson Pike in Rutherford County wasn't a totally absurd idea at that time. It was a fairly rural area. Today, wrong location. You probably couldn't pick a worse location if you really tried to. The road is certainly not what you would want if you were picking a location today. On the banks of the river is certainly not where you would pick today. And I would challenge, I mean, I've lived in a lot of cities and towns, some of them served by BFI and Republic Services. I would challenge them to come up with another landfill that's actually located in a metropolitan area, as Murfreesboro and Rutherford County is today. It's just not a good idea. Necessary, bad location. Now, I am an economist by training, by trade, and I can tell you that I could put together the numbers to justify just about anything. You'll hear it from these folks. I used to do that. I can tell you, it's not a problem to do it. But it's not the right thing to do. So, and I can tell you, that landfill stinks. Thank you.
Matt Grego? Okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Matt Grego. I live at 3365 Clovercroft Drive over in the Reserve, right down the way from Mr. Babb earlier. Can't really say anything much better than he actually stated things, but it seems to me this all got kicked off here tonight by the Attorney for Republic coming out saying what the board had to do. You're bound by the legal options of what's going on here. They want to tell you, your hands are tied, you're bound, this is what you have to adhere to. I think the public here is telling you clearly that your hands are not bound. You can pass judgment up to everybody, and you need to do what's right for everybody here within this county. Now, I think one point that I think hasn't been brought up here is they made a point of the regional plan states what you have to adhere to, what you have to look to for criteria to move forward. Now, that regional plan appears to me it was drafted at a time that is not relevant to today. Counties have grown dramatically. This area has seen a lot of population growth. There are a lot of concerns that environmental and otherwise that just weren't taken into consideration. So I think you all need to take a step back and say, wait a minute, does this plan make sense now? Are we going to pass our judgments based upon a plan that obviously the community doesn't want and it's not relevant to today? Finally, the gentleman from TDEC, but Republic said, is it cost effective? Is it geographically positioned? Common sense says putting a landfill right next to a river, expanding it out, expanding it out, and expanding it out, it's not going to work. It's not sustainable. It's not a long-term solution for anybody involved. And putting the burden on the Rutherford County, when all the other counties are giving us their waste, and it becomes our problem to deal with, is not sustainable long-term. I've got children that I have here. I'm a recent resident, just moved into the county. I've got friends and family that come in here, take a look around and say, why are you staying? Now, my neighbors, the community has been wonderful to me. I want to stay here. But it's clear as day. The writing's on the wall. It does not take a rocket surgeon to say, this is a problem that we got to fix, and we got to fix it now. Put it on y'all. Please, take a moment, go over that plan and say, you know what, the plan is not relevant now. We need to redo the plan, take into consideration all the current factors, and then we need to make a decision and move forward. Thank y'all.
Giles.
My name's Chuck Giles, Nightwalk Court, Garrison Cove. I used to work at the VA, Veterans Administration. It's right across from the dump. And the boiler where they get their electricity is right next to the river. So I asked the VA engineers, I said, can you burn this methane gas that's released from the dump for energy? And the engineers said yes. And in 1990, they were offered all the methane gas for free, and that isn't more than enough to provide power for all the VA campus and more. So I said, they offered it free, and why aren't you using it? They said, it's too dirty to burn. And I said, you mean it's too dirty to burn but clean enough to breathe? You know, and everybody kind of laughed and chuckled. So I said, what happened? What can we do? And they said, if someone bought a scrubber to scrub out all the contaminants, you know, we would pay the landfill for this methane gas. So I said, well, who was the VA engineer who worked with the landfill, Middle Point, originally talked about that? They gave me the name. I emailed him. The next day I was brought into the program manager, tongue lashed for using a government computer to talk to the engineer. And everybody said, they're trying to shut you down. You know, there's something going on here. So I asked the engineers, well, why wouldn't they want to buy a scrubber? And they said, well, maybe if you bought a scrubber, you know, and what they got to get, you know, stuff from the scrubber, they could look at it, and probably some of it would be hazardous, cancer-causing, or illegal dumping. Now, I've gone on the EPA site. The EPA has a landfill methane outreach program because, you know, this isn't just our problem. All across the nation, they burn their methane gas, so we don't have to, you know, breathe it. And they make millions of dollars, you know, in different landfills across the country. And the federal government has programs that they will pay to set up a program to burn gas, landfill gas. So we know the methane gas is odorless, but if you go on the website, the EPA.gov website, the methane gas carries hazardous compounds and VOCs, volatile organic compounds, that's linked to cancer and kidney and nervous system diseases. And that's what's carried by the methane gas. Further, the EPA says exposure to landfill pollutants can lead to adverse health conditions. If you go to the EPA land site, it lists all the land sites in the USA. Twice, the Middle Point landfill in 2002 to 2005 and 2005 to 2011 was a candidate to burn this methane gas so we wouldn't have to breathe it. But they started, they didn't finish. And they're still a candidate, but they hadn't done anything according to the EPA land site. And the landfill says they don't put any hazardous materials in the landfill, but if everybody or somebody threw one battery and 1 ton of garbage, there would be 30 million batteries, because there's 30 million tons of garbage. And to wrap this up, if I can just say, you know, when I was in the Army, they said never complain unless you can have you know, make some recommendations. So I got 3 recommendations. Do not expand the landfill. 30 million tons is too much. 2, all the money that's made from the landfill, put that in a recycling fund. And 3rd is make the landfill buy a scrubber, sell the methane to the VA, and we can make money from that and not breathe this.
Cynthia Hollis.
Good evening, council, friends and neighbors. I'm not a speaker, okay. Let's talk about solutions. My name is Cynthia Hollis. I live in Christiana right now, 35 years in Rutherford County, 15 in Christiana, where I have to take my garbage to the county dump on Shelbyville Highway, but that's no hardship to me because it's going right into town. And I have seen the workers there. They work very hard in the heat and the cold and putting up with all kinds of people who don't read signs. And I'm one that likes to recycle, okay? I scrape the last grain of rice out of the pan. And why? Because my parents grew up in the Depression. They had 8th and 9th grade educations, and yet they raised 7 kids, and we never starved. We were never unclothed or without shoes. And it wasn't because we were poor, it's because we were thrifty, okay? What I noticed at the landfill when I go there is the outrageous amount of household items. Now, I'm not talking about the bagged household garbage, which is probably where the smell is coming from, food waste and such. Can't you just burn it or bury it? We have to deal with that. Anyhow, the amount of household items that go into the dumpsters being thrown out for no other reason than people don't need it or want it anymore. And yet, Goodwill is a mile down the road. Now, when they put up that tractor trailer there recently, that's a good start if people would use it. But there's nobody manning that, and they're not encouraging people to take it from their truck or whatever into the tractor trailer where it would serve a purpose. Okay. So if you don't want that couch, somewhere out there is a family who doesn't have one, and they would love it. I have seen dozens of baby car seats being thrown out. Somewhere out there is a single mother who would love to have one. So the landfill keeps filling up. And what is the solution? Well, the lady who mentioned about reducing our waste is a great part of the solution. But as long as the population keeps going up and people keep moving in, we are always going to have a landfill problem. Now, we might need to expand the landfill, but we need to reduce the waste going into it and the volume of it. So, see, we don't have a landfill problem. We have a people problem. We have become a very wasteful society. And I can't educate the world or coerce everybody to recycle, but I can set a good example. So I would like to see recycling encouraged and made easier. I might suggest, going out of the box here, a once-a-month curb alert where we can actually put something on the side of the road that somebody might be able to use and pick up. Because there's somebody out there like me who does like to pick up something on the side of the road and fix it up, and yeah, put it in my living room. Proud of it. And I would also like permission to pick through those dumpsters, salvage an item, and keep it from going in the landfill. That's right, I am a dumpster diva and proud of it. As the Bible says, waste not, want not. And that's my 3 minutes and 2 cents. Thank you.
Steve Ayers. Steve, are you here? Heather Larson. No, they're still here.
Oh, I couldn't see from up in the balcony.
Pull that mic down close to you and speak right into it, please.
Okay. So, my name is Heather Larson. I live at 1546 Bear Branch Cove, which is over off of Pitts Lane, so kind of near Oakland. While I am not an attorney, and I somehow just found about this meeting last night, so I don't have a ton prepared, I am educated, and more importantly, I'm a mother who will go to the ends of the earth for her children. We're not from Murfreesboro. We have been here for 9 years, minus a 10-month stint when my husband's job took us to another state. We travel a lot, and the reason I'm telling you this is because we notice a significant difference in our health. I'm 36 years old. We eat completely organic. We drink filtered water. But there is something in this town that does something to us when we're here. As far as Murfreesboro goes as a whole, we love this town. We're from Pensacola, Florida. People ask us all the time why the heck we chose Murfreesboro versus the beach. I will tell you this has been one of the best towns. My husband and I have moved 12 times, and this has been one of the best towns we've ever lived in. We love the people. We love our neighborhood. We love the school systems here. We've thrived here. Minus this. I don't know who the Republic representatives are here. I was sitting up in the balcony, and I don't know who you are. But the main points that were discussed with you was all about money. And my question is what about the health? What steps have been taken to protect the people of Murfreesboro from biotoxin illness? What do you do to ensure the air and water quality now? According to what I'm seeing from the people here, you've done a really subpar job of that. And so I personally don't trust you to do anything better in the future. I know landfills are a necessity, but they need to be run the right way, and you've not done that. We built our dream house here 2 years ago. At the time, I've always been very health conscious and worried about toxins as it was. So we installed from the very beginning a top-of-the-line health water filter, as well as some of the top-of-the-line air purifiers you could have. We're having issues, to the point where when the smell in recent months has gotten so constant and at its peak in our area of town, I would wake up with what they call air hunger. I gained weight significantly in that it didn't matter. It didn't matter that I was working out, that we had a private chef cooking our food, that we had all these things. It didn't matter. I saw my local doctor here, couldn't find anything, which led us to go and see a specialist in Franklin, Tennessee. He's a board-certified internal medicine doctor, a board-certified pediatrician, and he also practices functional medicine. So he's going to look at your body as a whole and look for the root cause. The very first thing he asked me, since he lives in Franklin, is, are there any environmental issues going on in Murfreesboro that you think could affect you? And the first thing I thought of was the landfill. He immediately tested my TGF beta 1 and my C4A levels, as well as my 5-year-old daughter's. Your levels are supposed to be under 2,300. Mine were at 38,000, and my daughter's are at 32,000, my 5-year-old. Now, like I said, we eat all organic. Everything was checked. Everything, we check all the boxes to be healthy. We then brought in a specialist from Seattle, Portland, and Colorado, who checked everything in our house. There's nothing in my house that's making me sick. While they were there, the dump was at its peak. They immediately said, this is dangerous and you need to leave. So Republic, I will not allow my children to be harmed at the hands of your greediness. I strongly urge the board to not only deny your application, but also find a way to hold you legally responsible for the harm you have caused the city and the people of Murfreesboro. And I urge everyone in this room to go to your doctor. It's a test run through Quest, and have your TGF beta 1, your C4A tested. Multiple people in our neighborhood have had theirs tested, and all are elevated to my extent or even higher. Thank you, guys.
Chad Meadow. Chad Meadow. Got to keep it under 5 minutes, please.
All right, I will. I'm Chad Meadow, 5085 Sulphur Springs Road, out in Leanna. Not Smyrna, but I'm in Leanna. Occasionally I get a little whiff out there, but when I built my house out there, I made sure I was upwind of the landfill. What I'm concerned about is the river water. The Republic Waste landfill is a Subtitle D landfill with a synthetic liner under it, which means it's a giant bathtub with a drain that goes right to the Murfreesboro water treatment plant. So what flows through it goes to the treatment plant and gets treated. What doesn't get treated is the old county landfill next door, which was built prior to Subtitle D. No liner, no leachate collection system. So it either will leak into the river, which it does, or eventually blow out and cause another landslide like it did a number of years ago. When it was closed, it had a ridiculous gas flare system that never worked because they had 50 flares that couldn't collect enough gas to burn. So all that's been going up in there, and it has contributed also to the stink. I'm not saying all the stink. Eating fish taken from below this old landfill is not recommended. Does anybody in here know what's in that landfill? Does anybody know what Samsonite, Chromalox, GE, Kaminsky, or other now defunct industries put in that landfill?
I doubt they do. But I can tell you for sure that there's thousands of old lead-acid car batteries that are in that landfill. Now, the county retains long-term liability no matter what without a clean closure. It's a ticking time bomb. A clean closure is when you dig up all the garbage and move it to a landfill that does have a liner. Now, by law, Republic has millions of dollars in escrow for closure, post-closure monitoring. Rutherford County's fund is depleted because they're at the end of their monitoring period. So who pays for the next blowout? Now, Republic store-bought attorney, first thing he was saying when he came in here is the same thing we all heard 14 years ago, which was, and all the same articles were in the paper from all the county commissioners, we gonna stop this thing, this ain't gonna happen, it ain't gonna happen. Well, it happened. They got their permit because they met all the state criteria, they met all the regional board criteria, they got their permit. And don't shoot the messenger. May take a bunch of lawsuits, but they'll get their permit here. My solution is dig up the old landfill, put a subtitle D liner under it, bury all that garbage, let them expand on it, get all the leachate treated and out of our river. Work with the state, get Jefferson Pike widened from one end to the other, from Lascassas all the way to the Smyrna exit on 840. And that is a state highway, and the state can come down on them hard for dust and mud and stuff in the road if somebody would just get them to do it. So now there is a huge, and I'm the retired solid waste expert from the local Caterpillar dealer. I didn't have Republic, I had Waste Management. Waste Management has a huge capacity landfill in Benton County, Camden. Problem is, it's 100 miles away. It costs a lot of money to truck it up there, but it's getting trucked up there every day. All Nashville's waste not coming here. A lot of it's going to Camden, Tennessee. So if you want to pay extra to do that, do that. But sometime, maybe 25 years, 50 years, 100 years from now, just like they're doing in Florida, they're mining old landfills and recovering that space and recovering those materials. It may not be cost effective now, but that will happen in the future. So again, I say, let's get that old landfill that is leaking in the river out of there and put a liner under it and reuse the space. Thank you.
Thank you. Cody Best. Cody.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Speak loud right up into the mic.
My name is Cody Bost. I live at 110 Oak Tree Court, River Birch Farms out in Lascassas. If I can get a show of hands from the members of the board who actually live in Rutherford County. Okay, I was just curious. No one's really addressed that. Okay. I'm here with my wife and son. I have 5 boys that I'm worried about their quality of life. I purchased my house 3 years ago, and at the time, we never smelled anything. The realtor never mentioned anything. And if they did, we certainly wouldn't have purchased it. We live 4 miles approximately from the landfill, and I have smelled it on several occasions. Republic says that they are here for you, and if you smell it, please call them. They'll take care of it. Well, no one's called me back. For those who don't know me, I served this great country, the United States Army. I was injured in combat. The smell in Iraq is unbearable. It's a smell that you'll never forget. It smells a lot like the landfill that we're here. So now, I have to deal with flashbacks of war just from the smell. I shouldn't have to smell crap in our own backyard. We need to rise up and stop this expansion, or else Murfreesboro is going to be known as the trash capital of Tennessee. And is that what you really want your kids growing up to? I don't think so. Thank you.
Gary Beatty.
Mr. Chairman, as the next speaker is coming up, if I could just clarify for the audience, this is a regional board. Rutherford County has 4 of the representatives on there. The 3 other counties that are represented are contiguous to us, and they have at least 3 representatives on there from the board as well.
That is correct. Gary Beatty. Thank you. David Travis. Name and address and speak into the mic, please.
Yes. My name is David Travis. Excuse me, I'm a little bit hoarse every once in a while. 3319 Vestry Avenue in Murfreesboro. You know, just to kind of tell you where I live about 2.5, 3 miles east of the landfill. And, you know, as far as my residence, the odor doesn't bother me unless there's an east wind. We just don't have many east winds. So, but I came in this building tonight to say a few things, but then now that I've listened to everybody, I've changed my mind. You know, I've owned my own business for 25 years, and I understand the economic impact of the Middle Point landfill that it has on Rutherford County. I understand the tax savings that we have. I understand the tipping fees that are put back into the county budget, county money, and I understand that, you know, a lot of these roll-off drivers and a lot of these front-loader drivers and employees over there make good money. You know, a lot of people think garbage men don't make good money. Yeah, right. They do. And your city garbage guys don't make that much money, but those roll-off drivers work their hind ends off and they make a lot of money. But with that said, from what I also understand, Middle Point's one of the most profitable landfills in the Republic BFI sphere. Is that correct? I mean, Middle Point's one of the most profitable landfills y'all have. I can't. Oh, I'm sorry. All right, I'm sorry. Okay, but anyway, going back to what I said before, you know, I've been a business owner for 25 years. If I'm sitting out here operating and looking at it from a corporate level, from a business level, if I'm operating looking at one of my biggest profit centers, and every speaker before me, except one, and she wasn't real negative, but you know, everybody before me was completely negative. If I had my customers telling me, and if I heard from my customers like you're hearing from your customers tonight, I wouldn't be able to sleep tonight because I'd be broke tomorrow. I'd be out of business. And I understand, you know, you know, we have to take our trash somewhere. I understand that. But there was a lady before me, had a pink hat on, and she changed my mind about what I was going to say. Y'all are crappy neighbors. I understand y'all spent, you know, $2.5, maybe $3 million last year on reducing the odor. Just about everybody before me talked about the odor. And then I talked to a landfill expert last week. And, do what? 2 minutes. Oh, I'm about done? Oh, okay. But, and, you know, I made the comment that, you know, it's got to be extremely difficult in how would you control the odor from that landfill. And I was told that it's completely feasible to do that. You just got to spend a little more money. So if I'm looking at possibility of losing my greatest profit, or one of my greatest profit centers that I had in my business, I think I would put a little more emphasis on trying to be a good neighbor, because if just the odor was fixed, or at least greatly reduced, I understand you're not going to get it 100%. Most of the speakers wouldn't have never come up here to this podium tonight. And I know I'm addressing you, not necessarily the board. I'm sorry. But just kind of fussing back there. But from a business standpoint, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But my recommendation is I think the board should put a few caveats on Republic for a few things to address some of this stuff, and let them be better neighbors. I mean, years ago, there used to be, it was addressed here that as far as the dirt and the trash and everything out at the intersection, and I understand you can't be out there all the time, with a man with a broom and a shovel, but it can be done better. Just be better neighbors. And maybe the board could put some stipulations, maybe deny it this trip, put some stipulations on Republic that if they did a better job of being a better neighbor, then let's go with that expansion at a later date. But until this point, that's where I'm at on it. So, I mean, it's y'all's decision. So, and thank y'all. Appreciate y'all for letting me have my time.
Thank you, sir.
Got done.
Phoenix Gilly.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Phoenix Gillies. I live at 3546 East Compton Road in Las Casas. From Lynchburg, Tennessee, and instead of college, I went and traveled the country and studied some solutions for myself. There's two areas I am passionate about: economics and environment. So, obviously, I have concerns about the drinking water and the smell for myself and my children and my neighbors. But instead of complaining, I want to try and talk more about some solutions, at least as far as I understand. Somebody had mentioned topsoil. Well, that's easily created by compost. There are a number of innovations, even in waste packaging, that huge companies and small companies alike have created, where they've maybe created plastic out of plants. I know Rutherford County has grown in the direction of encouraging some farmers to grow some of these plants that are very widely available, things that even have very deep roots in the history of this country. Something that doesn't have as deep roots in the history of this country is recycling, because several decades ago we thought it would be cheaper to export it to third world countries. Some of those so-called third world countries have dug up old batteries and hardware and now become tech centers in the world. They have innovated, they have used waste from landfills, and have surpassed even American technologies in some regards. Now, obviously, this is my home, and this is where I'm trying to fight the good fight and, be a good community member. So I want to see some of those innovations put into play in our ballpark. And part of that is kind of changing the culture of the community here. Maybe we do shop more for recyclable items. Maybe we do focus more on putting things out to Goodwill or to a community-supported thrift idea that allows people who are less fortunate get access to these items. Speaking of people less fortunate, there's over 2.5 million homeless families in this country as of last year. Meanwhile, commodities have skyrocketed. I know from being a small business owner, technically an independent contractor. I've yet to hire an employee. Maybe one day I'll get to be there. I mean, being a Fortune 500 company is quite impressive. You do employ thousands of people. That's great stuff. But how do we get there with finding these kind of solutions? My point was, I believe that there's definitely a lot of the public awareness that wants for these things. They want to see these changes. They want to see these innovations happen. But it's going to take not just the public and the private and the government sectors alike. It's going to take a little bit of all of them. The whole thing with the construction industry is, as a young employee, young man myself, I've thrown probably $500,000 worth of usable material myself into Mount Trashmore, which it is known in other countries or counties other than just Rutherford as Mount Trashmore. That is a very popular name for what's, I'm learning is a very profitable landfill. That's nice. It's huge. It's the highest point in our county. But I know that Home Depot sells a 4-foot scrap of 2x4 for nearly $8.
1 minute.
So rather than throwing those away, why aren't we recycling them? And if they are shorter than 4 foot and supposedly waste, well, I know that Avantech, who makes the best quality subfloor, burns wood chips to produce subfloor. They have a 100% energy efficient facility in which they make one of the highest grade products known worldwide in the construction industry. And that's not even going into talking about bricks and block and, aluminum, copper, steel, things that we all know to be very recyclable. But plastic's one huge issue. A lot of people bring up plastic. Fortunately, there have been tons of innovations. Composite is one of the best things, at least in my lifetime, that I can perceive and somewhat gather the data on by myself.
Thank you. Mark Lee. Name and address in 5 minutes, please.
You bet. Hi, good evening. My name is Mark Lee. I live at 605 Gardenia Way, which is up in the Reserve neighborhood, not too far from our famous dump, unfortunately. My wife and I bought this home in July of 2016, so we've been there right about 5 years now. I also own a small business over in Smyrna. I'm really glad to see the RFP that this group has released, and you're trying to come up with some really innovative solutions to waste management. I think that's a commendable thing. My wife and I had the opportunity about a month or so ago to attend a similar hearing in this room where we heard the folks from Republic speak. So that was a real interesting experience there. And I understand that Republic has made this really substantial investment, here in our community. But the thing that I just kept coming back to was this notion that sometimes when the only thing you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And the solutions that Republic kept coming back to was, how can we take this existing landfill and extend it in time and continue to use this longer into the future than is the current plan of record? How can we expand its physical space? Adding 99 acres they're wanting to acquire. The folks from Republic also had proposed, I thought really graciously, to acquire the county landfill and take on all of this additional liability. How gracious of this big company to do this for our county here. What could possibly be their motive for that? Well, I want to share with you the views from our household there in the neighborhood in the Republic, or in the Reserve neighborhood. I oppose very strongly expanding the time frame for this landfill to continue to operate. It needs to stick with the current plan of record. Further, I recommend and we oppose any expansion in space to this landfill. The purchase of this additional 99 acres that Republic is proposing, not a good idea. thirdly, I strongly oppose the county selling to Republic whatever the landfill is that we own there. And I don't know that much about that, honestly. I have not had a chance to research this. I'm not an expert in this space. So you say, well, what is informing on this opinion? Why would I say this? And do I have a better alternative for you guys? I know you're trying to come up with a solution. You got a hard problem here. So I don't want to be just a gripey neighbor here. I want to try to kind of give you some context for it. And there have been some really well-articulated points here from people who have spoken previously this evening. But a couple of really simple observations. This very large landfill is now very close to a very large population that also is growing. The density of the housing here is way beyond what it was when this landfill was originated way back in the day. It makes no sense to continue to grow this.
2 minutes.
Got it, 2 minutes. Secondly, Republic has not done a good job managing what they have had. My wife and I regularly smell this dump. We've lived all over the place. We lived in Seattle, Naples, Florida, Plano, Texas, Research Triangle Park, North Carolina. Never have we smelled this kind of stench. We even smell this in our house. This is just really absurd, and we have a relatively new home. And also, you know, if the county were to sell this landfill that you own to Republic, you lose complete control. Yes, you might lose liability, but you then lose complete control over this scenario. So that's some of the reasoning for why. So what would you do instead of this? Well, I know you've got to figure out some place for this stuff to go. I would encourage you to encourage the citizenry here to recycle. We lived in Seattle for 12 years. The recycling program there initially was painful. It got to be expensive if you put stuff into trash that should otherwise have been in recycling. But by golly, it worked. We recycle religiously, and we have for many, many years. We come here to Middle Tennessee, and I'm sorry, but it is just way behind the times with regard to recycling. We can do better as a community. I know we can. So I would encourage you to look at alternatives. What are some alternatives to expanding the time frame on this dump or expanding its space? I'm sorry, find a more rural area. If you want to keep it in the county, and I understand that there's some economics that would argue for that. I don't understand all of those economics, but if you want to keep it in the county, put it in a more rural part of the county where it's far less populated, and for God's sake, not on the river. Secondly, if you can't find a suitable location within Rutherford County, then let's find a place outside Rutherford County and ship the trash elsewhere. We would be willing to pay a bit more for that than having to deal with this. So what's at stake? There are a few points here, and then I'll wrap up. The quality of life, which people have well articulated, health and safety, the resale value of our homes, the growth and viability of this city, and our environment. So again, I oppose any time or space expansion to this dump, and I thank you very much for listening to me. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Cynthia Allen. He's actually the last one on the list.
I guess you guys get out of here pretty quick, huh? So I want to thank everybody for being here. Truly, it takes a community, and everybody showing up tonight is really impressive, I think. So I'm Cynthia Allen. I live at 206 Peacock Avenue. I hate speaking in public, but I'm here because I'm passionate about it, just like everybody else. I think there have been so many good things addressed. I've lived here in this community for 30 years, in the same house, just down from the landfill. We never used to smell this landfill. We smell it every night, without fail, every single night. We could call, we could send letters, it doesn't matter. There's been nothing addressing the smell. Republic has mentioned that they have put in equipment to try and reduce the smell. We asked them after the last meeting. It sounded like in the last meeting that there was supposed to be no smell after their improvements in July. When we pressed them on that, they said, no, you misunderstood what was mentioned at the meeting. EPA is having a lot of new regulations come out, pushing down to the landfills to handle this, because, you know, landfills are a huge issue when we talk about global warming and all the other things going on with our air and water. Landfills are a huge part of that problem. So we have to think about how we handle our waste differently. Everybody's talked about our regional. I don't think anybody here wants a regional landfill. I don't think anybody moved here to be sitting in a community that's a regional landfill for the area. We live in a basin. People forget that. We are upstream from the drinking water supply for the entire region. It makes no sense to put a regional landfill, which keeps being discussed tonight, upstream from the regional water supply for the entire Middle Tennessee area. That makes no sense. We live in a karst community. That means that we have a lot of groundwater intrusion. You know, there's so many issues. I think the guy that said this is in the wrong place. You couldn't have picked a worse place to put a landfill, other than we did have some soil there, which we all know is rare in our area too. So I kind of wanted to just bring up, everybody wants to recycle, and that's one thing that I want to make sure that everybody understands. Recycling has changed globally. Even if we wanted to recycle, the markets have changed. And we've got to think about how we're going to handle our waste differently. And there are new innovations that are coming, because globally people have to figure out this. So we don't need to create a landfill that gets expanded, which they say could last 25 years. But how do you guarantee that? If you're a regional landfill and we've got the growth that's unprecedented in our area, how can you guarantee that we're going to have 25 years to begin with? So there's just a lot of questions and concerns. I hope that we can address those. I look forward to reaching out to you guys on this. I know I've talked to many of you. I've spent my life trying to do environmental work. I'm really passionate about water quality and our public health. I think there are some serious questions that need to be addressed on how the landfill is being handled, regulations that monitor our landfills, especially when we're having problems. And I'm really impressed that so many people showed up. One thing I want to address that's in the education that Republic keeps mentioning. I don't know if anybody can let me know, but I think at the last presentation it was $1 million is what they were putting in for the education. We had an educator here teaching about recycling, teaching about the schools and getting the schools involved. We let her go. That was at a cost well under $1 million. So that to be included in this RFP is a slap in the face for us as taxpayers for this community. That's just appalling that that's included in that. Republic is not a good partner. They haven't been a good partner. The recycling that they want to do, if I remember right in the proposal, is only cardboard. So I just feel like we're getting a smoke and mirrors campaign to increase this landfill, to have a regional landfill in our area, and I am just proud of our community coming out and speaking their mind. Encourage your legislatures. This isn't going to change until we think about waste differently and how we handle waste, and trying to push for those innovations. And the one thing that I think we can all agree on, that citizens want more. They want, the public health is important to them. They want more. They're willing to pay more. We don't want to run people off because we've brought a regional landfill to our area and then we have people leaving. We also have a very limited amount of green space, and we need that for the way we handle our biosolids and everything else. I think that's my time is up, so thank you guys. Stay involved. Let your folks know.
That's all of our residents that have signed up to speak. Is there any other elected officials that would like to say anything? Commissioner Piercy is rising.
Ladies, gentlemen of the board. My name is Steve Piercy. I reside at 2841 East Jefferson Pike. I am the commissioner of the second district in which this landfill lies in. The program they put on here tonight, these gentlemen were paid. They spent a lot of money, a lot of time. The people that come to this mic and spoke to you about this issue tonight, they probably paid money to have their children babysit. They may have left work early. It cost them money. This is bought These people are real. They have real issues, real problems with this landfill. We have fought it for several years. We killed an expansion attempt maybe 3 years ago, and now it's back. When you make your decision on how you're going to send your recommendation to TDAC, all I asked you to do is put yourself in these people's places and try to make your decision. Thank you.
Any other councilman or city or councilman or commissioner that'd like to speak? Seeing none, thank you for everyone that spoke. I really want to thank everybody in this room for staying cool, calm, and collected, even when you were hearing things you didn't want to hear. I do really appreciate that. We will not have a vote on this tonight. We can have some discussion if any of the council member or committee members would like to speak on it. We do need to set a meeting for almost 2 weeks from now, though. Ms. Barrett. Use your mic. I know you.
Do I have it now? Please make your feelings known and write down this address. Talk to your local commissioners. Talk to anybody and everybody. Talk to your teachers at the school. Talk wherever you go. You're in a nonprofit organization or you're playing bingo. Talk to everybody and get this corrected. Thank you.
Also mentioning what's on the board is 2021 instead of 20. Ms. Barrett, you wanted to...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to point out to those in attendance, our reason for not taking the vote tonight is statutorily we are required to have a second meeting. So our intent was not just to have this and not take a vote with the individuals here present. This is the policy we're following so that we make sure everything we do is as accurately as possible when we do take our vote.
Does anyone wish to have any discussion about it at this time?
Mac?
Yes.
Are you talking about discussion of the...
Of the expansion, yes.
Yes.
You'd like to speak?
Like to speak, yes.
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
So, I will try to be short. But I'd like to offer up the general definition of arbitrary and capricious. I think Mr. Callaway gave us a little law lesson, and I'm not a lawyer, but I can read a definition. In the broadest sense, the arbitrary and capricious standard requires the reviewing court to determine whether there has been a clear error in judgment. An arbitrary or capricious decision is one that is not based on any course of reasoning or exercise of judgment, or one that disregards the facts or circumstances of the case without some basis that would lead a reasonable person to reach the same conclusion. I just read that because that's our standard. Do we have a compelling reason? And I will go through these questions. I took lots of notes. Is the additional capacity needed? Not at the size that it's been applied for. Mr. Klassen stated that at that expansion that they could conduct business as usual. Taking 70% of outside county trash is untenable. That is not consistent with what Rutherford County or Murfreesboro has ever desired to do over the next 10 years. Will the extension provide cost-effective disposal without sacrificing environmental acceptability? I've heard a lot about the environment. Fugitive dust, covering homes. We've got fugitive trash in the roads and drainage system. Gas emissions, methane was discussed. Odor, which I know a lot about now, hydrogen sulfide. Topsoil required that's not been applied to the daily cover. That's creating an environmental liability on a lot of property that's being used for soil cover. Water concerns are karst geology, which is just a fancy way of saying we've got a lot of sinkholes here in Rutherford County. And there's concerns about liners leaking and unlined landfills. Is the location suited to serve the region or located near the edges of the region and away from region population centers? This landfill isn't in a rural setting anymore. Murfreesboro is adjacent to this landfill, the corporate limits of Murfreesboro. It is no longer a location suited to serve 70% out-of-county customers or trash. And will the cost of providing infrastructure outweigh any cost savings? I'd love for Mr. John Smith, the alias here, the economist, to do an economic impact study, because I love it. You can make figures say a lot of different things if you work at it. I've been in consulting in my previous life as well. You've got road and traffic improvements that could be put into a pro forma. Jefferson Pike and Lebanon Pike are just not up to snuff to handle the traffic that they've been having to deal with. Something I really have thought about is the diminution of value of the real estate around the landfill. It goes back again to that property used for soil. Is there environmental liabilities that we're creating with the moonscape, and is the diminution of value of real estate occurring because of the gas and the odor? So I think I can go through these 4 questions and tell you that I'm not being arbitrary or capricious in any of these comments, that I think that this expansion is not consistent with our 10-year plan update. And I will not be voting for the expansion of this landfill, but I wanted to say these things for the benefit of the committee, because there should be no fear, uncertainty, or doubt in making these decisions. We should be making them based on the information we've been provided, hearing the public concerns, and aligning it with our 10-year plan, which I don't think this is consistent. At the scale that they have proposed this expansion, it is not consistent. Thank you.
I want every committee member have an opportunity to speak, but I do want to put something on the record for clarity. I brought with me 9 letters sent to my office, either by mail or email or hand delivered, positive for the landfill. So everything we heard just about was negative, but there's 9 business owners basically that had positive comments. And I'm not going to read those, but there are some. Now, any other committee member?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
We're going to go ahead and set for our meeting for July the 9th at 6 o'clock in Coffee County.
I would like to do that. Would you like to make that motion?
Yes, I would.
I'll second it, with the caveat that the chairman provide us a copy of those positive letters so that the committee members have everything on record to review.
I can do that.
And also, that'll give us enough time to put it in the papers and radio and stuff like that.
That's correct. Now, where in Coffee County, Mr. Bell? Going to do it at your office? Okay. If you would get that street address to us and a map, and we'll get that. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'll talk with you tomorrow on that. It will be open to the public, but we will not have any more speakers. But you are more than welcome to come here and listen to what's going on. It will probably not be televised. This is the second one we've ever had televised.
Mr. Chairman, can we close?
We need to vote first.
Well, I understand that, but what I'm saying, close for the second. I want a voice vote or a roll call on the motion.
Oh, we can do a voice vote if it's all right with everybody.
That's fine.
So we have a motion and a second to have a meeting in Coffee County, the actual location to be determined, on July the 9th, which is a Friday at 6 p.m. Been motioned and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed, say no. The ayes have it. So that will be our next meeting. We'll get that publicized as soon as we have a location. Any other discussions? Do you hear a second? All in favor say aye. Thank you for being here.